Level 1. You meet for coffee like you always do. The barista knows your order. You finish each other's sentences. You share a laugh that lands in your bones. You have history, inside jokes, stupid nicknames. It feels unbreakable. Then one night, a late text arrives. A photo of a place you don't know. A date, a time, no caption. You ask, they answer with a joke. You let it slide. You should not. Your gut fizzes. But it's nothing, you say. You are loyal. You are blind by habit. You believe the face you trust. You sleep, and the city keeps breathing. Somewhere, a light turns on in the wrong room. You wake to the memory of the picture. You open the map. You drive past your own doubts. The street is empty. The building is older than it looks. You take a photo. You don't post it. You tuck it into the back of your mind like a splinter. It aches. You tell yourself you're overreacting. You pretend to forget. You cannot. You are awake now. Level 2. Clues arrive in small, soft packages. A receipt that isn't for coffee. An unfamiliar make of watch left by a sink. An extra key hanging from a ring you never noticed. You find texts buried in the trash. Short, coded messages. Letters that smell like someone else's cologne. They don't confess. They deflect. You listen to the rhythm of pauses. You memorize how they say sorry. You start cataloging differences. The late nights. The phone deaths at exactly 10:12 p.m. The voicemail you never hear because they always step outside. You start to notice shadows in their photos. People cropped out. Vehicles half in frame. Your brain sharpens. You watch more closely than you talk. You follow one lead like a stray thread. It pulls. You find a license plate. You pull over. Your hands shake while you type the number into a search. A name you don't know. A name they never used. You pace. You tell yourself to breathe. You breathe like someone waiting for a verdict. Loyalty is a warm weight. Curiosity is a knife that gleams. You still can't decide which way to pull. Level 3. You become an investigator, not by choice, by desperation. You check bank records. You compare stories. You flip through photos like a detective flipping through evidence. Every detail becomes important. The wrong coffee cup, a hotel chain recurring in their receipts, a scar you didn't know was there. You follow them once, from across the street, under the flicker of sodium lights. They meet someone. They laugh. They point. They hand over an envelope. The exchange is quick. Hands brush, then gone. You don't move. Your heart is a fist in your throat. You take a picture. You watch their car leave. You follow it for 5 minutes. You stop because following feels wrong, and because every second stretches like elastic. You go home. You don't sleep. You replay the scene. You craft possibilities like weapons. Maybe it's volunteer work. Maybe it's a second job. Maybe it's worse. You are stuck between hope and the truth. You decide you need proof, not for justice, for yourself, for the person you thought they were. You find the stash. It happens by accident. A closet you never opened. A false bottom in a bag they call their travel case. Inside, envelopes, blank cards, a ledger with names, phone numbers circled, 24 receipts for luxury items you can't afford to imagine, a gun wrapped in a towel. Your breath stops. Your stomach drops. You have a photograph of you together at a park. It is the only thing that makes your hands hot and cold at once. You hold it like a relic. Something inside you breaks. Questions clap like hands in a dark room. Where does laughter end and lying begin? You sit on the floor. You count. You read through the ledger. Locations, times, a pattern emerges. A rhythm of pickups. A name repeats. A face you've seen in the periphery. You remember them in a bar months ago. You had a drink together. They had the same laugh. You never connected the dots, not until now. The truth smells like gasoline. You think of calling the police. Then you think of them as a child, of bones and birthdays, of scraped knees. You think of hurt. You think of betrayal. You think of being the one person who could stop them, or the one who drives them further. Level 5. You consider confrontation. You rehearse it like a play. You imagine the lines. You imagine the apologies. You imagine the consequences. You ask friends. They say call the cops. They say leave. They say you can't fix this. You don't feel like either option fits. You choose to confront them alone. You pick a place that's neutral, a low-lights bar with a rooftop. You want witnesses, but not a crowd. You want the sky to be wide. You want the city to swallow the noise. You practice breathing. Your palms sweat against the phone. You light a cigarette even though you don't smoke. You plan your words, short, true, sharp. You need to see their reaction before you judge them. You need them to stand where you are standing. You need the truth to be visible. You tell yourself you are strong. You tell yourself you deserve honesty. You tell yourself you're ready. You're not, but you go anyway. Level 6. They arrive like no one else in the world exists. You see the familiar silhouette and your chest constricts. They're softer than you expected and harder than you feared. You speak. Words stumble out. You ask about the ledger. You ask about the gun. They listen. Their face shifts through layers. At first, denial, then small admissions, then a rush of explanations. This is where motives spill. Blackmail, debt, bad choices colliding, a brother with a problem, a promise made under pressure. They didn't start this alone. They were pulled. They were doing what they thought would keep you safe, and maybe they were lying to themselves. You ask why they never came to you. They said they couldn't bring themselves to be the cause of your fear. They said they loved you enough to hide the ugliness. You feel anger bloom. You feel tenderness wilt. You feel dizzy. This is the point where love and legality cross swords. You have to decide. Do you call the police now? Do you let them go for another day? You see terror in their hands. You see a life you've known splinter. You are handed the map and the knife. You choose. You make a move that changes both of you. Level 7. Consequences arrive at different speeds. Some are immediate. Some arrive like storms months later. You called the police. They arrest him in the hotel he uses as a halfway point. The ledger becomes evidence. You give a statement. You sleep in a panic. You watch the news. People ask you questions you are not ready to answer. They want headlines. You want the old jokes. Guilt is a room where you haunt yourself. You get calls from people you haven't seen in years. Some are angry, some are relieved, some are silent. Months later, he's out on bail. A different kind of silence fills the space between you. You meet once, a bench at dawn. You don't hug, you don't speak much. You trade a few truths and a lot of apologies. They cry. You cry differently. You realize people are more complicated than the choices they make. You realize trust is not a thing you get back on command. You go on. You stop pretending you know all the answers. You learn to read small expressions. You build boundaries like fences. You learn to ask questions before you assume safety. You carry the photograph in a drawer. Sometimes you take it out. You remember. You also move forward. You meet new friends. You let the city in again. But at night, when the lights blur, you think of secrecy like a shadow that never fully leaves. You learn the price of ignorance. You learn the shape of courage. You learn that sometimes the person you loved needed saving from themselves, and sometimes saving them costs everything you thought you were. The world keeps being complicated. You keep choosing. You keep waking up. You keep looking at faces, searching for the truth beneath.